a second here, I'm going to pass control over to Hartland. And Hartland is with the Host Broker. These guys are essentially a brokerage business. So they work with all different types of people that touch our space. So MSPs, data center, security firms, SaaS, ISPs, really you name it, that touches our space, and they work with them. What I really like about the Host Broker is they have a wealth of knowledge. They can help you out throughout the process, and they also publish a weekly list of people that are looking to get either bought or sold within our space. It doesn't cost anything to get on this list. You simply submit your email address to them. They'll add you to the list. It does have to be a business email address. And then if you do find somebody on the list that you're interested with, you can use the Host Broker, but you're also not obligated to go through them. So if you find an opportunity locally through a networking group or something like that, you obviously are not restricted. So really great resource, I think. At the very least, if it's something you guys are thinking about in the future, I think it's worthwhile to get on that list. And that way you know what's going on out there, and you might not be actively looking for something, but something might pop up in your area, or even some type of provider that could add a service to your existing offering. That'd be very easy to integrate and bolster the products that you guys are offering to your clients. So I'll stop talking now. We'll pass the role. Pass it over to Hartland to take control and share out his screen. Let's see, gotta stop my share. There we go.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for jumping on the call today with me. Can everybody see my screen, Bill? Or sorry, Will, rather?
Yeah, we can see it.
Yep.
Great. Okay, thanks very much. So thanks for the introduction. I will support everything that Will said. We have two sides of our business. The M&A side is really what I'm going to be speaking to you about today, but just so there's no confusion, the company is eBridge Marketing Solutions, and we have an agency, a marketing agency that supports every group that Will just described in terms of MSPs and data centers and hosters and infrastructure providers, etc. And then we have our M&A side, which supports those same groups through growth through acquisition strategies rather than organic. So my contact details are up here. Please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. I'm also going to answer a few questions at the end here if there's time. And historically, we've had a few that we can run through. We also operate the domain, the MSP broker. So just to kind of provide a little bit of clarity there, we have MSPs on the list as well as hosting companies. The Host Broker was kind of a bit of a legacy name because historically there were a lot of hosting companies, and laterally in the last couple of years we've had a lot more MSPs join as well. So you'll find a mix of both. Anyway, so I just wanted to move along here and provide a little bit of background. So first of all, some benefits to this discussion. So and some of these are things that you're going to have considered already, but there may be some new points as well. So being able to increase revenue more quickly than you might otherwise have been able to do if you were simply growing organically, and being able to enter into other markets, either geographic areas or perhaps vertical markets. So for instance, if you want to get more penetration into the legal space, or for example, healthcare or something that you want to either you're already having some traction in, or you want to expand that, this may be a route to go. Also, options to be able to develop a broader portfolio of services that can complement some of the existing services you provide, and then be able to bundle those in a way that is unique, a way that provides a bit of a competitive advantage relative to obviously your competitors and offerings that you have now. There also may be opportunities to be able to acquire some proprietary technology so that you're not necessarily having those licensing fees for some services, and that may be a route that's of interest to you to go for some services. And then finally, eliminating competition by acquiring them. Now, this isn't really going to be overly useful strategy in large urban centers, but in smaller communities where there may only be a half dozen competitors, this may well be able to be a good strategy to kind of eliminate not necessarily all our competitors, but a significant number. Moving along, some other benefits, increasing resources. So if you don't have the internal resources, staffing, etc., you may be able to acquire some groups that will have the technical capabilities or the product knowledge that you might be seeking. So that might be an interesting route to go. Also, buying power with vendors. So not only will you obviously have additional buying power, but you'll also be able to increase your buying power through potential legacy pricing that other groups may have that you can take over. And then also be able to reposition your business and kind of round out products and services. So there may be a bit of a strategic and messaging component to this as well. So what are some of the considerations to look at here? So those are some of the benefits. And the obvious question is, well, do you have the cash to be able to do it? And you may say, well, I don't have the cash. I'm not in a position to be able to do this. Well, there are different size opportunities, right? So it's not necessarily that you have to have $10 million to be able to do an acquisition. There are opportunities for smaller businesses that are selling for lots of different reasons, someone retiring or health reasons or marital reasons or what have you. So lots of different businesses in different positions. And so if you have the cash, that's great. Obviously that makes things easy, but if you don't, there are options. You can go through the SBA process. You can obviously look for investors, there's friends and family, and then bank debt as well. So lots of different routes to go. How easily and how well will the newly acquired company integrate into your existing business? So you should be thinking about how seamlessly you can do this, and are there going to be implications on the company culture? What about roles? Are there people who are going to be essentially duplicates for competencies that you already have covered, in which case who would stay and who would go? Is there going to be a brand discussion around some brands that if they have multiple brands, or even if there's just one brand, which one will be the primary one? Will you divvy the brands up based on services, product offerings, geography? Will you only retain one brand and roll the other one under it? So these are some obvious questions to think about. What implications are there from a sales and marketing perspective? Is there another office that you're acquiring, and what happens to that? And then what about applications, reporting systems, etc.? So how are those going to work? Are there duplicates? And perhaps there's some systems that they have that you may find are solving some of the challenges that you've had, and other ones where you prefer your kind of homegrown solution. So does your team have the current skills to get you, where you want to be? So whatever your strategy is, do you have those skills in-house? And if not, an opportunity like this may be able to give you the expertise that you need. And so you can either choose to retrain your existing team, or by acquiring the other group, there may be some experienced personnel who can roll out other solutions that you might have in mind that you want to roll out and offer, but don't necessarily have the competencies. So this might be a route to go. And by no means is this a comprehensive list, but the last slide that I wanted to cover, and arguably the most important one, is do you have a strategic plan? So in going through this, have you thought about the benefits that an opportunity will bring to your business? Have you thought about the people, and what about the processes and the products and services, and how they will be integrated into the existing business? How will the new business, combined business, how will you grow that? And is there what is the competitive advantage? Have you developed a target profile, the type of opportunities that might be of interest to you? So the size of the business, the number of employees, the skill sets that you're looking for, geographically, where might these opportunities lie? and really use these as ways of screening opportunities or filtering opportunities, and it'll make the evaluation process for you a lot easier if you have given thought to this, because then it either checks the boxes, and undoubtedly it won't check all the boxes, but it will check some of the boxes, and is it checking the boxes that are critical for you based on a strategic plan. So certainly encourage you to create this in advance. And my thinking here with this presentation is just to be able to give you some things to think about before you get too serious about looking at opportunities. Having said that, as Will suggested, there's no cost associated with signing up for a list, and it might give you an idea of kind of what's out there, and happy to have conversations with you about expectations. Just think about what synergies you're hoping to achieve, and is there cost savings? Are there cross-sell, upsell opportunities, etc.? So I'm happy to, as I say, chat with you more. In the interest of time, Will wants me to keep things fairly brief, so I'm happy to open it up to any questions here. Again, contact details are on this slide, and if there's something you think about afterwards, please feel free to reach out as well. So Will, what are your thoughts?
No, it's great. I appreciate that, guys. If you have questions, feel free to ask them out, shout them out, type them in the chat. I'll get things going. So can you explain a little bit more about the list that you guys publish? Is it strictly business names, or what kind of details are included on that? And are you including things like size based on revenue, employee count, stuff like that?
Yeah, so there are lots of different sizes. We are generally focused on opportunities that are, I would say the average opportunities are high hundreds of thousands, but we have opportunities that are smaller than that, certainly like even sub 100K in some instances. However, MSPs tend to be a little bit larger than their smaller opportunities. So I would say several hundred thousand to low $1, maybe $2 million mark. Having said that, we do end up with opportunities that exceed those. In some instances, if the opportunities are too large, then we may not necessarily post them to the list, and rather reach out to groups on a one-on-one basis. Company names are not provided in the listing for perhaps obvious reasons around confidentiality. However, if the listing piques your interest, then through a non-disclosure process, you will end up receiving a package or a book of materials to evaluate the opportunity, and then of course be able to have opportunities to speak with the seller directly.
Great. I don't know if you guys saw in the chat how to get added to the list. I believe they can email you, Hartland, or they can go to thehostbroker.com. Is there a link on there if they want to submit their information?
Yeah, why don't I just put it into the chat, and I'll give you the direct link to subscribe.
Nice. Yeah, that would be great.
Hey, Will, I got a quick question for Hartland. It's Ryan.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah.
Hi, Ryan.
Hey, what is the average broker fee, or I'm sure you can't just throw out a number, but is there a percentage of the merger, the acquisition, the total revenues? How is the fee calculated on your side?
So the fees are tiered based on the size of the opportunity. And so our sort of standard fee is 5% of a successful transaction, so it's entirely success-based. But there is a tiered structure, which over $1 million is a descending scale, 4%, 3%, 2%, and 1%.
Okay.
For each subsequent 1 million.
And do you guys specialize in MSP M&A or all small business M&A?
It's all IT services. So it's okay. I say IT services. So the list that Will read out in the beginning included data centers, infrastructure providers, hosters, MSPs, and ISPs. So we don't do, there's no restaurants or car dealerships or gas stations or anything like that. It's entirely IT services. And primarily in the US, but not only. We do have opportunities globally, but for MSPs, obviously, geography is important, and MSPs primarily are US based.
So Two quick questions to follow that. Do you see a lot of activity at the $100,000 level? And my other question would be, since you just mentioned MSP and geography, what do you consider a reasonable distance for the geography piece that makes sense that from what you've done?
Yeah, so in terms of size, opportunities in the MSP space tend to be a little bit larger. So we may have like a hosting opportunity or an ISP that's smaller. MSPs tend to be, as I say, a little bit larger. So they're in the kind of high hundreds of thousands, 6, 7, 8, 900,000, and up to, obviously they go sky's the limit type thing, but we typically will not see opportunities that exceed about 5 million. The odd time we'll get a few that are a bit larger than that in terms of MSPs, but that's the kind of main window, I would say. In terms of geography, this comes down to some degree a bit of a personal preference, because if you have a partner, for instance, who could manage an office in another city, well, it may well be across the country, and that's fine. If you've got a business that you're acquiring that is turnkey, so you're acquiring all of the staff, then you may be able to run that remotely with a visit a month or a visit a quarter if you've got somebody who's heading those operations, and if there's a strong history there. But if not, and you're planning on being a very integral part of the team on a regular basis, then you probably want to have that business be pretty darn close to you, where it's going to come down to your tolerances for commuting, I suppose. But so it's kind of hard to. There's no right answer. We've seen companies acquire far away, but I would say a majority would be close proximity.
Okay, cool. And one more question, because I'm taking up everybody's time. What is the deal with, and this will apply to everybody, it's not just a selfish question. What is the deal with the emails that I know I get all the time, but you other guys probably do too, from like people that claim that they're, a veteran status and they have a degree and they're trying to buy out companies and they've specifically targeted you? I mean, I must get an email from this one guy once a month, and I pretty much just put him to spam, but I'm like, is that a thing?
Well, it was breaking up a little bit there, but I think I heard what you were saying. You were saying targeting this from this individual who's claiming to have veteran status. Is that what you said? Yeah. So there are funding opportunities and options for groups that fall into certain categories, and veterans is one. Women's, Aboriginal. Indian status is another. So there are groups that will satisfy criteria to get preferential lending opportunities, and so I don't know why they would necessarily be reaching out to you over other groups, but my guess is they've got a list that they've created and are kind of continually hitting for opportunities. Certainly buyers will be reaching out to you to look at you as a possible opportunity for them, and of course you could do the same thing back. I obviously can't speak to this individual request, but I would say that lots of them are legitimate. On the other hand, there are lots of people who are going to waste your time, and I guess one of the things that we try to do is eliminate those groups, the groups that are simply window shopping from those who are serious. But it's quite common. There's a forum that is sort of well known for this practice, where there's a lot of groups that really are very unlikely to close an opportunity, or who are trying to lowball you, and they'll say, well, look, I'll pay you if it's $500,000, I'll give you $10,000 now and $5,000 a month for the next X number of years.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Great.
No problem.
So I guess my only other question that I would have in terms of like time commitment, right? So we got a lot of business owners on this call. For any of you guys who might be thinking about this, I mean, it sounds like this is a pretty involved process. It sounds like it's a pretty big time commitment just from evaluating, going through, and completing the transaction, then integrating them. And that's not even considering, I would guess, if you're doing some type of financing like an SBA loan. So, I mean, what type of time commitment do you think this would be on average? I know it's not the same for every business, but if some of these guys are interested in going down this path, I mean, what do they need to be thinking about in terms of that?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, and probably one that's not given enough attention initially by new buyers who are not necessarily familiar with the process. So I'm not sure I can give you an exact time figure, but I think that going back to my last slide around a strategic plan will certainly help save that time, because if it's clear what you want, then you'll be able to eliminate what is not going to make sense for you for whatever reason. And as a result, you'll be able to really hone in on opportunities that are going to be at least potentially a good fit. So with a series of a few quick questions, geography, services offered, etc., outside of what's available in the listing itself, because you'll be able to read that and hopefully make a quick decision on whether it's of interest. But then beyond that, if they satisfy your criteria, I would say within anywhere up to 2 or 3 hours of an initial evaluation of the material, and even that's probably generous, you should be able to quickly decide, yeah, this thing potentially has legs or it doesn't. And then scheduling a call with either me or the seller to get further details would probably, very quickly, again, determine whether there's an opportunity to go forward. Now, evaluating it to a yes or no is one thing. If you keep getting yeses and you got to go through continually digging deeper and going through financials and whatnot, obviously there's going to be a further investment. I would say that it would be helpful if you had some partners on your side, and namely initially an accountant, CPA, to be able to review financials. And if you don't have the capability, and this may be part of your territory, but there are other groups that specialize in helping evaluate opportunities from a product alignment, from a culture fit, etc., and putting together and I've got a bit of a plan in terms of whether opportunity looks like it's going to add strategic value or not. And I think that the other important point to make is that the smaller the opportunity, the fewer moving parts. There's just the less time it is to evaluate. Now, having said that, the trade-off is that the larger opportunities have proportionately less time to invest. So for instance, if it's a $5 million opportunity, it's not 5 times as much due diligence work as a $1 million opportunity. But nonetheless, there's less on the line if you were to look at smaller opportunities. So my suggestion, unless you've got experience, is to go through and look at smaller opportunities first. It'll just be easier, and undoubtedly there'll be lessons you'll learn as a result, and better to learn those on smaller opportunities where the impact of mistakes is going to be less. So, I think, Will, with all told, this process shouldn't be too onerous, but the further you go down the road, certainly the more time it's going to take to consult with legal, who's the other group that I forgot to mention that you should have on your side, but that group doesn't come in until you're ready to negotiate an agreement.
Got it. Makes sense. Looks like we got a hand up, Bill W.
Yeah, thank you. So I was a little bit late, and you may have covered this and I may have missed it, but who do you represent in this transaction, the buyer or the seller?
Great question. So the opportunities on our list are a culmination of our sellers that are working with us, and also with or who have requested that we be retained to help them source a potential buyer, but also opportunities that may come through other brokers. And so our fee is paid by buyers. So ultimately, we would be working for you if you were a buyer. But the opportunities on our list may be opportunities that have approached us, but they know that the buyer is paying the fee, and we're not double-ending the transaction.
Okay, fair enough. That's a little counterintuitive. Normally it's represented by the seller, I guess. I'm thinking of a real estate transaction.
Yeah, so certainly you're not the first one to make that comment, but in this space, there's precedent around this, and buyers typically pay the fee. I mean, there are exceptions, but for the most part, buyers pay the fee.
Okay, and so your typical listing, well, how you arrive at a price, and do you see that up front, or do you just see that, if you're browsing listings, is that something you post with a listing as an asking price, or do you just post particulars like this much annual revenue, etc.?
Yeah, so good question, and I get that question where people say, well, why aren't there asking prices on any of the listings? And the simple answer for that is that a seller may have a price in mind. If the price is not a reasonable request, then we simply would not list them, because it just doesn't make sense to have somebody who's asking for really non-market rates, and so if they have, usually what we'll do is we'll provide some guidance if they don't already know that, on what's a reasonable expectation. And if they nod their head and say, yes, this is something in that range would be reasonable to me, then we would move forward with the listing. The reason we don't put specific asking prices is because, by and large, the vast majority of the listings don't have a specific asking price. They are looking for best offer, and of course, price is a function of a number of different things. First of all, there's the time value of money. So if the payment is made largely in advance, or sorry, I should say on close rather. So for instance, if 80, 90, 100% of the payment is made on close, well, a seller will take a lower offer than if the seller is providing financing. And so versus, for instance, like 30 or 40% on close, with the remaining to be paid in equal installments over 12, 24, 36 months. So price is certainly a function of that. It's also a function of rapport and alignment. Sometimes sellers are not necessarily entirely motivated by money. They may be motivated on finding a good fit for their customer base, to look after their customers. And so they may actually decline a higher offer in favor of another group who they believe is a better fit for one reason or another, with being able to support their customer base. So a bit of a long answer to your question, but prices are not listed for those reasons. Having said that, all of them are aligned with the kind of market rates, which typically will vary depending on the business. But say, as a kind of a ballpark, 3.5, 4 times as a multiple of EBITDA. But those numbers could go up for some businesses in some instances.
Okay, and so from the point that we sign up, how long is it going to take to get a login to view listings?
We vet every subscription, therefore you don't get immediate access. The mailings go out on Wednesdays, and you'll be added to that list. So there won't be any issue here, but you can imagine we get requests from subscribers, frankly, all over the place, and people put in fake information, and just email might be valid, but it's a Hotmail address and whatnot. So we vet them all. If I see that come through and you want access more quickly, I will be happy to reply back to you with the password immediately. In fact, I can even give it to everybody. You know what I'll do? After we're done here, I'll put a link in to the subscription in the window, and then chat window, and also put the password in there, because I'm not concerned about anybody on this call. The advantage to subscribing is you'll get notified of the updates. Otherwise, you'll have to proactively continually check back, and you'll probably end up over time forgetting about it. So this helps you to remind you when there's updates to the listings, which generally happens weekly, but we do skip the odd week if there's a holiday or something.
Thank you, Hartland.